pure wisdom always considers universal impermanence, and because it considers impermanence it does not produce the fetters, thirst, etc. It is like a sheep that is kept near a tiger. Even if it has good grass and good water, it does not get fat. In the same way, even though they experience pure happiness, the saints nevertheless contemplate impermanence and emptiness, and that is why they do not produce the fat of desire. Furthermore, pure happiness is inseparable from the 16 noble aspects of the 3 concentrations and is always without the mark of a self. If it were endowed with the mark of a self, it would produce minds of attachment. Thus pure happiness, although excellent, does not give rise to attachment. For many reasons of this kind, the yogin considers pleasant worldly feeling as suffering. He considers unpleasant feeling as an arrow. As for the neither unpleasant nor pleasant feeling, he considers its impermanent and perishable nature. Thus he does not experience desire for pleasant feeling, he does not experience hatred for unpleasant feeling, and he does not experience delusion for neither unpleasant nor pleasant feeling. That is what is called mindfulness of feeling. D. Mindfulness of mind. The yogin also says to himself, "It is because of happiness that one becomes attached to the body, but who is experiencing this happiness?" Having reflected, he knows that feeling comes from the mind. It is following mental elation and a misunderstanding that beings experience a given happiness. The yogin must take into account that the mind, which is transitory, has the nature of being born and perishing and lasts for only a moment, is unable to experience happiness. It is by mistake that a person claims to feel happiness. Why? At the very moment when one wishes to experience happiness, the mind has already changed. At the moment when the happiness arises, the mind is another mind. There is no connection between happiness and the mind. How could it be said that the mind experiences happiness? The past mind, being already destroyed, does not experience the happiness. The future mind, being not yet born, does not experience the happiness. The present mind, being momentary and fleeting, does not have the awareness to experience the happiness. Question. We accept that the past mind and the future mind cannot experience happiness. But the present mind, which endures for a moment, must experience happiness. How can you say that it does not? Answer. I have just said that being fleeting, it does not have the awareness to experience happiness. Besides being impermanent in nature, all dharmas have no span of duration. If mind lasted for a moment, it would also last during the second moment. It would then be eternal in duration and without the nature of disappearing. And yet, among the 3 characteristics of conditioned dharmas, the Buddha also mentioned the characteristic of disappearance. If the mind did not have disappearance, it would not show their characteristics of the conditioned. Furthermore, if dharmas suffered a destruction a posteriori, we would know that they possessed it already a priori. Thus when a person clothes himself in a new garment, if on the same day that he puts it in, the garment is not yet old, it would not be old on the second day either, and so on for 10 years. The garment would always be new and never old. In truth, the garment was already old, and we should know that this aging coexisted with its newness. But since this aging was subtle, we were not aware of it. It is only in the presence of old things that we notice it. This is why we know that dharmas do not have a time of duration. How then could the mind last long enough to be able to experience happiness? Since it has no duration, it is impossible that it experiences happiness. This is why we know that there is nothing that can truly experience happiness. A mind experiencing happiness is a purely conventional entity. We speak of a single entity experiencing happiness as a result of the succession of minds. Question. How do you know that all conditioned dharmas are impermanent? Answer. Here I must repeat what I have already said above. These conditioned dharmas, which all depend on causes and conditions, are impermanent. Because not existing earlier, they exist now, and because existing now, they will not exist later, they are impermanent. Furthermore, the nature of impermanence always follows conditioned dharmas. Conditioned dharmas have neither increase nor decrease, and finally, all conditioned dharmas are mutually destroyed. Therefore they are impermanent. Furthermore, a twofold old age always follows conditioned dharmas. I. Primary old age, E. The old age of old age. A twofold death always follows them. I. Death by oneself, E. Being put to death by another. This is why we know that all conditioned dharmas are impermanent. Among the conditioned dharmas, the impermanence of the mind is very easy to detect. Thus the Buddha said, sometimes worldly people recognize the impermanence of the body but do not recognize the impermanence of the mind. Some worldly people say that the body is eternal, but the mistake that holds the mind to be eternal is even more fatal. Why? It may be that the body will last for 10 years or 20 years, whereas the mind, night and day, disappears each moment, arising as one thing, perishing is another, without stopping for a single moment. On the point of arising, it is born one thing, on the point of perishing, it dies another thing. The true nature of such a magical thing is ungraspable. For innumerable reasons of this kind, we know that the mind is impermanent. That is what is called mindfulness of mind. E. Mindfulness of dharmas. The yogin asks himself, on whom does the mind depend and who controls the mind? Having considered well, he does not see that the mind has a master. The dharmas resulting from the complex of causes and conditions are not independent. Not being independent, they have no intrinsic nature. Not having any intrinsic nature, they have no self. If there is no self, then who controls the mind? Question 1. There must be an Atman. Why? If the mind controls the body, there also must be an Atman to control the mind. In the same way that the master of a kingdom controls the general and the general controls the soldiers. There must be an Atman to control the mind, and there must be a mind to control the body so that it may enjoy the 5 objects of enjoyment. 2. Moreover, as each person possesses his own mind, we know that there really is an Atman. If it were only due to a mistake about the body and the mind that we assume an Atman, why would we not produce the idea of an Atman in regard to another? Thanks to this sign, we know that each one possesses his own Atman.